The Credit Suisse crisis shook Switzerland's financial landscape, sparking anger and calls for reform. As the dust settled from the crisis, Switzerland faced a critical juncture, raising questions about its reputation for competence, prudence, its future as a dominant global financial center, and how they will make money in the future. In this exploration, we journey through Switzerland's unique socio-political landscape, uncovering the complexities of a nation rooted in tradition but grappling with the demands of a rapidly changing world. In 2022, Switzerland's attention was captivated by the Schwinger, traditional Swiss wrestlers who became the star attraction. However, in the following year, the spotlight shifted to youth groups. An enduring tradition since 1891, every August 1st, patriotic Swiss gather on an alpine meadow overlooking Lake Lucerne to honor the 1291 rebellion, which marked the foundation of modern Switzerland. This reverence for tradition runs deep in the country's identity. In March, the country witnessed a remarkable event when young protesters flooded the headquarters of Credit Suisse in Zurich's Platz, expressing their anger at the typically serene epicenter of Swiss banking. Demonstrators wrote messages like Credit Suisse in chalk outside the bank while voicing their discontent through megaphones. This unprecedented display of frustration and resentment left an indelible mark on the nation's psyche. Credit Suisse, once an icon of the Swiss economy, played a crucial role in financing the country's railroads. Its eventual government-brokered rescue by UBS Group AG was a significant blow to the national psyche, comparable to the 2002 collapse of Swissair, another national icon. Many pondered whether this event could, or should, trigger profound changes in Switzerland's way of functioning. However, despite the turmoil and calls for reform, there have been few visible signs of significant change in Switzerland since that pivotal moment. It seems as if the nation collectively shrugged off the upheaval and returned to its primary pursuit of economic prosperity. Unemployment rates remained relatively stable, and the annual inflation rate of 1.6% continued to be enviable in the industrialized world. Moreover, the Swiss franc, the country's formidable currency, even gained value after the Credit Suisse deal. The lack of immediate change can be attributed to the essence of Switzerland itself, a 13th-century nation that prides itself on being a bastion of stability on a continent often ravaged by conflicts. A nation that granted women the right to vote only in 1971, decades after the rest of the Western world. Swiss society is characterized by a cautious and methodical approach to change, favoring slow and deliberate progress. Michael Herman, director of the Swiss Political Research Institute Sotomo, warns that the risk of nothing happening is significant because people tend to adapt to new situations, especially when they appear to work without any major issues. However, the aftermath of the Credit Suisse crisis left Switzerland's reputation for competence and prudence tarnished in the eyes of international investors. While some politicians sought to use the debacle as a catalyst for reform and a crucial election issue, they lamented that the issue had already lost its urgency and momentum. The Swiss political establishment has emphasized that the swift rescue of Credit Suisse demonstrated the stability of the country's financial system. They argue that it prevented significant damage not only to Switzerland but also to Europe and the broader Western world. This stance highlights the country's aversion to Anglo-Saxon-style financial policing and the preference for a light-touch regulatory approach. Despite external challenges, Switzerland has managed to maintain its appeal as a hub for multinationals. However, its long-standing supremacy in wealth management is slowly eroding, with projections indicating that it might fall behind Hong Kong in managing assets for the rich by 2025. Singapore and Dubai have also been gaining ground in this regard. The stakes for Switzerland's status as a global financial center are high. Both FINMA, the country's banking regulator, and the Swiss National Bank SNB have called for reforms to address systemic issues in the aftermath of the Credit Suisse crisis. However, bringing about meaningful change is hampered by Switzerland's regulatory culture, which relies on a light touch and leaves regulators with significant discretion to act or not. While critics emphasize the need for more stringent rules and enforcement, the Swiss Parliament's slow and cautious pace in addressing these issues reflects the nation's overarching tendency towards inertia. Urgent reforms to restore trust in the banking system and address the size of financial institutions face considerable resistance. The recent report by the University of St. Gallen offers a framework for a finance ministry study on reform but stops short of endorsing the idea of breaking up the banks. The report emphasizes the need for stricter liquidity rules, higher capital requirements, and a robust framework for nationalization to avoid the too-big-to-fail problem. However, experts argue that the real problem lies in the embedded risk management culture at banks like Credit Suisse. They emphasize that change should encompass a cultural shift to avoid repeating the same mistakes. UBS Chairman Colm Kelleher highlighted the importance of culture filters to preserve the bank's ecosystem, suggesting that UBS doesn't have a culture problem. Nevertheless, the Swiss political establishment seems eager to move on from the Credit Suisse crisis. Geneva's top financial crimes prosecutor's decision to drop a long-running investigation into Credit Suisse's mishandling of rogue banker Patrice Lescaudron hints at a desire to put the past behind. The Swiss Parliament's handling of the takeover by UBS, symbolically denying its blessing but already having senior lawmakers sign off on the deal, underscores the glacial pace of Swiss politics. While a parliamentary inquiry commission is investigating the role of the government, FINMA, and the SNB in the takeover, its findings are not expected for at least a year, and the files used will not be made public for half a century. This lack of transparency signals a lack of urgency to learn from the crisis. As Switzerland heads into federal elections, the question of whether such a small country can bear the risk of having such large banks remains unanswered. While some are eager to see the conclusions of the Commission's investigation, others remain skeptical about whether significant change will occur. In conclusion, Switzerland's love for tradition and a cautious approach to change have contributed to the apparent lack of major reform following the Credit Suisse crisis. The nation's political establishment has emphasized stability and swiftness in dealing with the crisis, but some critics argue that a fundamental cultural shift is necessary to prevent future financial disasters. As Switzerland faces competition from other financial centers and a changing global landscape, it remains to be seen whether the country will embrace substantial changes to protect its position in the global financial arena.